slides, please?
Yes.
All of us are obstetricians by choice.
By the time you welcome the panelists.
Yeah, please do.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Sneha.
Okay.
चुप रही ना, आवाज सुनाई दे रही थी.
Yes, Dr. Mitra.
Yeah, so we have Dr. Sarita Balerao from Mumbai, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi Sheshadri from Chennai, Dr. Jaiswar from Lucknow, Dr. Kalpana from Jamnagar, Dr. Shashi Bala from Ranchi, Dr. Vidya Chaudhary from Jhansi. And I also welcome all the attendees who were staying right till the end to share the troubles and the rise in the pulse rates with us. So, as we all know, Dr. Sneha, can you please make the first slide? Dr. Sneha, please share.
Yes, I'm already, but I'm unable to. Yeah, let me, there.
Previous. So all of us know that labor is a sentinel event in the life of a woman and her family. Every incident of their family will be related, remembered with what happened during the labor and its good outcome. So what is the aim? Next slide, please. All of us, including the patient, her family, are looking at a healthy mother, a live, crying, intelligent baby, and an emotionally fulfilling experience for all of us. Let us not forget that increasing cesarean sections is becoming a challenge for all of us. And if we go with the first lecture of Dr. Ajay Mane, let's remember that the single most important decision is to remember that labor is a natural process. So let us not hurry and let's not make mistake in diagnosing labor accurately. Because when we correctly diagnose labor, half of our problems are decreased. And to ensure efficient uterine action and maintaining good fetal well-being throughout labor, I am sure all of us can see a happy ending to this journey of the woman and her baby. Let us acknowledge that the labors in different situations are different. A nulliparous labor is very much different from a multiparous. What happens in induced labor is different from what happens in spontaneous. What happens with malpresentations, multiple pregnancy, as opposed to a single cephalic. So presently, the most important challenge is to manage a singleton cephalic nulliparous woman whose uterus and her own experience is not yet practiced. So they are going to be the single most challenge for us. What we have been taught traditionally is that the labor outcome depends on power, passenger, and passage. But what our practical knowledge says is that three more factors come into play. How the patient is well prepared, is she inclined to take the labor pains? What is the tolerance and forbearance of the obstetrician? How long are we ready to bear all this? And the interfering mother-in-law. Second stage, you all will agree, is very unpredictable. From a outcome within half an hour to a prolonged duration. There is drama. The duration may be so variable even in normal circumstances, and there could be decisions which are to be taken within snap seconds. So, Dr.
Yes, very true, Dr. Mitra. Once again, I welcome all the panelists and all the attendees. And I'm sure all of you, like us, are true hardcore obstetricians. And in spite of having a good qualification, good training, and a vast experience, we still are here to discuss the dilemmas in the second stage of labor and the difficult vaginal deliveries. The reason being, there is a lot of confusion regarding understanding the basic physiology of the labor, the effect of each uterine contraction on the oxygenation and the fetal acid base status. And that's the reason we have to take this decision depending upon the whether we are the protagonist of the active management and timely and appropriate intervention or the masterly inactivity. We have already said that we have to understand the basic physiology of the second stage and the fetal acid-base status. So friends, why this confusion? We have been taught traditionally that the second stage starts from the full dilatation of the cervix till the delivery of the baby. But this is not so. With recent training, it has been proved that there are two phases. One is the latent, where there is only cervical full dilatation, but no active pushing and no expulsive uterine contraction, and the presenting part is not visible. On the other hand, we have the active phase where the mother is actually pushing and the presenting part is visible. So whether we count the second stage from the first basic, the passive or the active phase. So friends, it is the active phase from you have to count is at the duration of the second stage proper. So now we come to the practical management. So Dr. Sarita Bharirao, this is a case scenario for you. Sarita?
Yes, I'm here, madam.
Yeah. 26-year-old primary gravida. She's an uncomplicated pregnancy, 39 plus 4 weeks. I think somebody is talking in between. Please,
thank you.
Everybody. Estimated fetal weight is 2.9 kg. Good progress of first stage of labor. She is now in second stage. Maternal fetus stable. You are the obstetrician on call, and how do you assess this patient? How do you manage this patient?
Thank you. And I'd like to thank Dr. Lakshmi Srikhande for involving me in this wonderful panel. First thing is that I would like to go down and see the station and see the position, because I think rotation and the station or the descent are the most important things. Here we're dealing with a primary gravida. So strictly speaking, one can wait 1 more hour. It is 2 hours is the recommendation for a primary gravida, 1 hour for a multi-gravida. And in case epidural anesthesia has been given, analgesia, then one can, strictly speaking, wait even more. But the most important thing is that the fetal heart should be good, the pelvis should be adequate, and the patient should be making progress. If there is a large calcute, if it is stuck,
Just 1 second. Please unmute.
Please mute everyone. Please mute everyone. Support. Nikhil, please mute everyone except the panelists. Yeah, please, Sarita.
So I was just saying that the fetal heart should be good, contraction should be good, and if the pelvis seems adequate, the fetal heart is good, and the baby, there doesn't seem to be a CPD, and the caput fetal distress is not there, we can definitely wait.
Okay, right you are. So as far as the duration is concerned, you are right. So, but what are the factors you feel can delay the second stage or prolong the second stage?
So I think the cephalopelvic disproportion is one of the main factors. And, sometimes we rely on ultrasound measurements of fetal weight, and ultrasound is not always that accurate towards term. So we have clinically.
So these are the 3 P's, what we have already specified, the power, passenger, and the, passage. Any abnormality in these, any of these can lead to prolongation of the second stage of labor. And you have already stated the duration. So we follow the algorithm this way. So we have been taught, like, you have to bear down. So bear down, you tell the patient to take a deep breath, hold and push. So whether you recommend a spontaneous pushing or the directed pushing, what is your view?
So actually one should not immediately make the patient bear down the moment the patient is fully dilated. The patient herself should get the urge to push, and that is the best chance of normal delivery if we allow her. Otherwise she will get exhausted. It will lead to pelvic floor dysfunction later on, and it can also lead to fetal distress. So we should do that unless there is fetal distress or there is some need to deliver her quickly, in which case we should encourage her to push little earlier.
What are those situations? What are those situations?
In case that there is fetal distress and there's a need to deliver early, then we need to make the patient push. Or if she has been in prolonged labor, she's not progressing, then we might want to make her push to help her to deliver.
Yeah. So certain situations like chorioamnionitis, where you want the patient to deliver fast in an hour or 2, or you have a category 2 fetal heart rate tracing, not reassuring, not non-reassuring. So that's a time where you actually want to push her and have a hasten delivery. Does maternal positioning has some effect on the duration as well as the outcome? Sarita.
Yes, yes, there are studies which have shown that maternal position is important, and being upright does result in a shorter second stage. So it has been recommended that these positions are important. So I think that we can try the effect of positioning if patient is not progressing.
Which position do you normally labor your patient?
Normally, we have a delivery table which gives them a lithotomy or a modified lithotomy position. But for some time, we can ask them to do a little squatting or put the head up and help them to for the descent.
Try to make it as erect as possible.
As erect as possible. Yes.
Good. So we have decided now position also upright, slightly maybe lithotomy with head up and spontaneous pushing. The head is also good. Well fixed. The FHR is good. What is your management protocol if the woman has been administered epidural? Dr. Mitra, you can take it.
I think now Dr. Sarita would be a little bit tired, so let's take up with Dr. Jaiswal. Although Dr. Sarita did mention it slightly, but Dr. Jaiswal, because lots of the private patients do opt for better pain analgesia in the form of epidural. So what would be your take to the attendees? What should be the attitude of the obstetrician when patient has been given epidural? Does the duration differ? What should be our stance? And how does the management differ if we are giving epidural? Dr. Jaiswal, please.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. That's a nice question.
Your volume, ma'am, should be a little bit high.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Now it's
No,
okay.
still live. Come here.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, start talking, please. But your volume is not adequate.
So, सूर्या देखो इसमें वॉल्यूम ठीक नहीं आ रहा है क्या? हेलो.
I think without headphones is better.
Without headphones.
Please, ma'am, speak in the mic.
Yes.
What is now? I'm audible now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So actually, this is a nice question, especially when the patient is in epidural analgesia or yes, this is an analgesia. Okay. So we have to allow the patient more time, because if their mother is okay, fetus is okay, there is no problem in that, the heart is fine. In that situation, definitely we should give more time, like 4 hours in the nullipara and 3 hours in a epidural, in a multipara. Even the sometimes says that everything is fine, you can give it much more time there also. But if there is any problem, then you have to interfere. Sometimes what happened with the epidural analgesia, patient is not able to push. Hello, I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
In that situation, sometimes we need instrumental deliveries if the patient herself is not able to push. Otherwise, we have to give more time.
So the good, clear take-home message by Dr. Jaiswal is that when patient has opted for epidural, she should be actually counseled beforehand that the second stage will be longer duration, and the mother and the baby will be monitored well, and the pain relief will be good, and she will be advised to push when the head is really down. Of course, we have to be prepared for instrumental delivery in case she's unable to push. Very right. So now, Dr. Jaiswal, you are in a teaching hospital, and during your tenure, you would have taught the residents all there is about episiotomy. What is your opinion about episiotomy all in restricted? What is the final take?
Nowadays, as a routine, episiotomy has not been recommended, even in the primary. Because once we were resident, our time, every primary, according to our teacher, every primary should get the episiotomy. But nowadays, the episiotomy should be given whenever it is required. Otherwise, not in routine every patient, according to recent guidelines.
And in your career, what have you found? Does episiotomy decrease
Hello?
I think Mitra is losing a
of
connection.
pelvic organ
Yeah.
prolapse? Does it your
Hello? I'm Dr. Mitra. Your
yes?
voice is not audible.
Continue.
Is there any evidence that the routine episiotomy will decrease organ prolapse or decrease injury of sphincter?
No, I don't think there is a recommendation or there is a study, but there may be some study showing, because if everything is going fine, there's no need of giving episiotomy. Rather than episiotomy gives most post-operative or post-delivery pain, discomfort also. So it depends on the condition. When we need, then it should be given. Otherwise, whenever there is a chances of tear, perineal tear, in this situation, definitely we should give episiotomy. Or if there is a delay because of tight perineum, then it should
Yeah.
be.
Okay.
Very true, ma'am. So now, okay, having solved the question of giving episiotomy or not giving, now in this particular patient, the the resident informs you that the fetal heart is dipping. So how will you assess, and will you hasten the delivery or you will wait? How will you manage fetal distress if it is true or it is pathological in second stage?
Good question. Once the patient has come in the second stage, we know that there is a two part of the second stage. But
No, we talk about fetal heart rate, Madam Jaiswal. We have already come to the stage of almost delivery and you are getting the fetal heart rate of 100. So
Yes.
whether it is a normal physiological or pathological.
Now the fetal heart is dipping. So we have to assess the cause. If the head is already down, in that situation, we have to hasten the delivery either by encouraging the push, or we can put the instrument or the forceps or ventilus. Because the 100, yes, we know once.
But we want to ask you whether you get it normally also, because normally second stage of labor you get head compression, and second stage bradycardia is a physiological process. Okay.
Definitely it
Yeah.
is physiological, because once there is a head compression, there is a bradycardia. But it should not be very prolonged, because on that basis we can't leave the patient for a longer period. We have to assess it.
So basically, ma'am, would you advise that the patient fetal heart should be monitored very, very closely after every contraction, and whether it is recovering? And would you oxygenate the mother? And sometimes in times of desperation, you find that in trying to hurry the delivery, the resident is already giving fundal pressure. So I want you to please clarify for the audience, what should be the attitude? Should you give fundal pressure? Should you not give? Or try some other method?
If CST source, if we are giving CGT source, there is early onset of bradycardia.
We can't hear you, madam. We can't hear you actually. Dr. Sarita, can you take up this? Madam, please try to adjust your audio. Yeah.
No, Doctor.
Yeah. Yes,
Dr.
madam.
Jaiswal is audible.
I don't know what happened, because sometimes there is a voice is okay, sometimes there is not.
Okay, please go ahead. Please go
carry
ahead, Mitra. But it is not audible for the attendees also.
I
Let
can
her adjust her audio. Yeah. Please, Dr. Sarita, please take up.
Yes, thank you. So if the head has come down, I would like to go in for an instrumental vaginal delivery. And personally, I feel that the Ventouse is the best choice. And that is what I would feel. Now, fundal pressure, can be a two-edged sword. It may help a little bit to deliver the baby, but given very aggressively, it can be detrimental. And we have to be very careful about this fundal pressure. So I think that we have to be judicious, careful, and apply a vacuum.
So thank you very much, Dr. Sarita. The message that we wanted is that please let us abandon fundal pressure. Instead, take a call on either giving a good episiotomy or delivering it with the vacuum. So also in the small caput, what is your take? Can you apply vacuum? And if the head is short of rotation, there is a small caput, and there is little bit of dip in the fetal heart. So what is your message?
So I think I would definitely attempt a vacuum, and I would, in the meanwhile, ask somebody to keep things ready for cesarean, because if the vacuum fails, we will need to shift the patient to cesarean. Sometimes we have shifted the patient to the OT, done a trial of a vacuum, and if it is not coming down, then gone for a cesarean section, immediately, which reduces the time in the transfer. So with a small, with a fetal heart dipping, one has to be very, very careful. Yeah.
So really, you can imagine that one has to really take instant decisions, because while you are wanting to accomplish a vaginal delivery, but you may be ready for a second stage cesarean section also. And what I really wanted is in small caput, and if you know that the vaginal delivery will be possible, one can apply vacuum also, which is safer. So I would just like you to enumerate the requisites for operative vaginal delivery.
I'm audible now?
Very basic.
Yeah, Dr. Jaiswal wants to say. Okay.
Yeah, please add, ma'am.
Madam, please.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm audible, madam?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay. On the same, I think Dr. Saita has already covered that question. See, we should not delay in this situation. We have to deliver the fetus as early as possible. I also agree with that. There may be the use of forceps or ventouse, whatever the obstetrician feel comfortable or available. Thank you.
And ma'am, just recount for the audience the very basic question or important prerequisites for assisted vaginal delivery. I know it's a basic question, but just for a revision.
Yes, definitely. This is a basic question. So whenever we are going for this is very important, especially at every setup, because we don't know which delivery can convert into instrumental or maybe easy. So everything should be ready in the form of prerequisite, which is given by the RCOG guidelines. In this, whenever you are using instrument, you see the head, whether it is engaged or not, or it should not be palpable per abdominally, or else only one pole of the head should be palpable.
Yes.
So I'm really glad.
Yeah.
So Dr. Sneha, 1 second. So the most important thing which Dr. Jaiswal has again pointed out is that let us not run into the labor room and just do a PV. When we are going to manage a patient vaginally, let us do the engaged head ourselves, which is a small point, but if we miss it, we may make a mistake. So I think, thank you very much, Dr. Jaiswal.
Yes. So, Dr. Kalpana Kanderia, this is now we come. See, we have got very interesting cases and we go over quickly because we want to give crisp and clear-cut messages to the attendees. We are now on the second case scenario. Dr. Kalpana.
Yes.
Mrs. B, 28-year-old, second gravida, previous normal delivery. And now this is an uncomplicated pregnancy. First stage of labor was 12 hours duration. She's receiving oxytocin, 3 units at 15 drops per minute. I think this is this Dr. Mitra.
You take it. I'll take the next question. You continue.
You continue with the case.
You continue. You take it. You take this question, Doctor.
No, you start it. We have decided already. Please do that.
Okay, because I'll have to see. Okay, so Dr. Kalpana, this is a second gravida, and she has had a previously normal delivery. Now she's in second stage, and she has been in second stage for 50 minutes. On internal examination, we find that the baby is in the right occipito-posterior position. How will you manage, or what are your important steps you will ascertain in delivering this patient?
Yes, Mitraji. First of all, I will thank you, Dr. Lakshmi ji, and both the moderator for organizing such a nice webinar for the basic points to clear it out. And there should not be the distress of obstetrician with the distress of the patient or baby. This is the first and foremost thing we learn in this year. Usually in occipito-posterior position, the rotation takes time. We can wait. And
Yes.
if rotation ceases because of the poor expressive forces and pelvic contractions are absent, vaginal delivery usually can be accomplished readily in a number of ways.
Yeah.
We can rotate the occiput manually, or nowadays Killian's forceps are not in work. It's obsolete at present in the era of cesarean also, but still in previous days it was there. In failure of spontaneous rotation, we can increase the oxytocin unit from 3 unit to 5 unit, and the drops also.
So very good, Dr.
If
Kalpana. It is the second gravida. So in occipito-posterior position, we will have to be very vigilant about continuous progress in descent of the head, and we expect increased time for rotation. Now, instead of rotating 3/8 of a circle, if the baby decides to take the shorter route and become direct occipito-posterior. Dr. Sneha, please advance the slides. Next one, please. Please advance. So if the baby decides to be direct occipito-posterior, what would be your plan of action? What would you expect how the baby will deliver? Dr. Kalpana,
better.
please.
Yeah, ma'am. It's better if it rotates to 12 o'clock position. In 6% of cases it happens, and the head can be delivered spontaneously also in this position. And if not, then with the aid of outlet forceps, we can deliver the baby easily with the help of episiotomy
So
to prevent the perineal
very
laceration
right.
or rectovaginal fistula.
A very important thing that the mechanism of action in direct occipito-posterior is flexion followed by extension, as compared to direct occipito-anterior where it is only extension. So here the episiotomy has to be a bit more generous. Very nicely answered. Next, yes. So I would, because actually manual rotation and forceps extraction, etc. are, we want to cover other cases as well. So Dr. Kalpana, I just want you to tell that in this case of, if there is a transverse arrest, when would you choose cesarean section over vacuum or instrumental? I've just taken the liberty of
If it
cutting
is
short
transverse.
points because
very
I don't
very
want
true,
it a theoretical discussion. I want you to give your
it's
practical
true.
input. So when we are stuck with these kinds, when will you opt for cesarean section? Yes, ma'am.
In case of rotation being transverse, then we can apply the vacuum extractor. And if there is a station is 0 or we cannot rotate it fully, then we should go for cesarean section. If the heart rate drops, then we should proceed for the cesarean section.
Very true, very true. The treating obstetrician or the person who is facing the patient should know the roominess of the pelvis, the size of the baby, the rotation, the uterine contractions, and their own capability. If its station is higher, then please don't attempt vaginal instrumentation. But we have to remember that a second.
Hello. What's wrong with?
Hello?
Dr. Mitra is losing her connection.
Lot of dangers. Dr. Shashibala, thank you, Dr. Kiran, for giving very good inputs.
Yeah, so we now come to the case number 3. Dr. Shashibala, this is a case for you. We have a primary gravida, 38 plus 6 weeks, diagnosed as bridge. You have very well counseled her that she's primary. Baby weight is approximately 2.9 kg. She needs to undergo cesarean section, but she didn't listen to you, came to you during labor, active labor. She is now fully dilated, almost right sacro-anterior. Good fetal heart rate, station -1. What would be your management for her? How do you decide? We have various factors to decide any scoring system.
Yeah. Thank you, madam, for giving me. I am audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, madam, for giving me this. You have given me chance as a panelist. So thank you so much. As this case scenario, that the patient is a primary gravida. She's 38 plus 6 weeks of gestation. Weight is 2.9 kg, and patient is already in the true labor, and the cervix is fully dilated. and it is the right sacro-anterior position. Fetal heart sound is good, and it is the fetal station 1. So at this time, in this case, I want to give a chance for the trial of labor. So there are some criteria for the vaginal delivery for the breech. So according to the weight of the patient, we can give the for vaginal delivery, because the average fetal weight 1.5 to 3.5 within 3.5 kg we can.
That's the reason I'm asking you this question. She's primary full-term pregnancy with good size baby. So your first choice should be cesarean section. Even at this stage, keeping everything ready, if at all she progresses vaginal for the vaginal delivery, then. But suppose if you have to decide, what are the factors? Now you can tell me what are the factors you consider.
That is the weight of the patient and the flexion of the head. The head should be flexed, and the type of the breech should be frank breech, and there should the pelvis should be adequate, good uterine contractions. The pelvis is adequate, at least it is there the -1 station. So it is in the -1 station. So there is a chances of the outlet should be adequate, and there should be and the facilities continuous fetal monitoring should be done. So everything is okay. I can give the for vaginal delivery according to that is a Dattuni-Andros breech scoring. That is the parity, gestational age, fetal weight, previous breech, dilatation and station. And in this case, the parity is 0. So 0 at least the parity is 0. Gestational age, that is also the 0. The weight is about the 6.3, so it can become under 1. Score 1.
That is okay. We don't go into the details of this. Now you have this patient.
According to this criteria, I can give.
Yes. That's the reason we have decided to deliver her vaginally. She is progressing fast. What is your outcome like? What all things do you expect? How do you expect her to deliver vaginally?
Pardon, ma'am?
What are the techniques to deliver vaginally? Yes. Please
yes,
go ahead.
I will for the assisted. I will try for the assisted breech delivery.
The patient is in labor. She is pushing, and sometimes, to your surprise, the whole baby is pushed out. That is spontaneous vaginal breech delivery. Yes, that is spontaneous breech vaginal. You are happy.
No, madam,
is happy.
I will ask the patient.
What all the possibilities you are now for the delivery of the baby vaginally breech delivery? She is pushing. To your surprise, you are getting the whole baby out, and everything is very happy. But then sometimes, we are considering all the possibilities.
It is the assisted breech delivery. I will assist.
Okay.
If she is pushing out everything, there is no question of assisted breech delivery. Now, if the baby is delivered up to umbilicus, now your role comes as to assist the breech delivery. Yes, please go ahead now.
If it is delivery up to the umbilicus, then I have to see. Then I will ask the patient to bear down, and it should be the dorsum should be anterior, and then up to the umbilicus, I will see up to the delivery of the shoulder. For the delivery of the shoulder, I have to see either the arms for the delivery of the arms. For the arms, I have to see either the arms are flexed or either it is extended. So when the arms are flexed, so I have to see that is the scapula are they parallel to the vertebral column.
Yes.
I will feel the hands in front of the chest wall. So I will take the hands, any arms which is I will catch. I will take out arms, and after that I will deliver the. I will help to deliver the. So then I will help to deliver the posterior shoulder first, then delivered by the anterior shoulder.
Okay. Next. You have delivered both the arms.
Okay. The back should be anterior, and when it is delivered up, when the shoulders are delivered, the baby is hanging outside, and then I will decide for the delivery of the head. So I will take either any, there are the 3 methods of delivery of the head.
Yes,
that is Marshall and the forceps delivery and the Morris Medley width. Head is in the Burn Marshall, if the base head is small and the head is hanging, baby is hanging outside. So I can try the Burn Marshall.
Yes.
Or either I can try the Burn Marshall, and otherwise I can apply the forceps.
Okay. Before that, see, when the baby is hanging by its own weight, in fact,
Yeah.
it is helping the maintenance of the flexion. And,
And
now
also,
when
suprapubic
almost the whole
pressure
of the baby is hanging
is
out, you just gently catch the
Then I
legs and then you
assistant
give
to
a
give the
circle.
pressure,
Yes.
suprapubic pressure, madam.
Suprapubic pressure
The baby is
simultaneously,
there's a
which
two,
aids the
there's a-
flexion.
Yes.
Okay.
Baby is hanging
Now
outside
suppose-
by the
suppose.
gravity, and I will ask my assistant to give the suprapubic pressure.
Yes, done with that.
For
Now
the downward
suppose
and
this
backward.
doesn't help.
And-
Now
yeah.
you have the next procedure, Mauritius Valley White. How do you
Yeah.
do that?
In the Morris Smiley width, the baby is like, so I will hang, the baby is hanging like this.
Mm-hmm.
Arms, my left hand. And by the left hand, I will try to flex the head of the baby. So
Correct.
with my fingers, with my index finger and this finger, I will keep my hands on the Mallet process. And this hand, with the right hand, with the two fingers in the right shoulder, and this finger, index finger on the left shoulder, and with my fingers over the subpubic in the subpubic state, and then maintaining the flexion. By maintaining the flexion with this hand and maintaining my flexion with my two forehands, and keeping the maintaining the flexion with it, and give the traction. And traction should be the downwards, backwards, and giving like this. And when the face is delivered, the mouth is delivered, then and the rest of the head will be delivered.
Okay. So if at all nothing helps, the forceps can be applied
Yeah,
for
I
the
can apply the
aftercoming
forceps.
head, which is very, very safe and effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I add one thing before I take the next question?
Chalo.
Some very important things for breech that we should not forget is we
Yes,
have-
that's what she has already said. That's why we want to leave it. But
No.
only
We
thing I want to
have-
revise is to maintain the back anteriorly, no
Yeah.
unnecessary traction, and try to help the flexion of the head always. Okay.
and
No
that
unnecessary,
will
and
be-
keep the cord aside. No unnecessary handling of the cord.
Yeah.
Always cover the baby with the towel so that you do not stimulate the breathing of the baby. Okay.
Yes.
And
Over to you.
just a word about if the arms are extended, then we should not forget the love sets maneuver. We have to remember that anteriorly the pubic symphysis is short, posteriorly the sacrum hollow is big. So in love sets maneuver, when the angle of the scapula is visible of the anterior scapula, we have to hold the baby, elevate it so that the posterior shoulder comes below the symphysis pubis, then make it anterior, turn it by 180 degrees and depress it so that the posterior shoulder, which comes under the symphysis pubis, when you depress it, it pops out and you have to reverse it to get the other. So it's like he is screwing the shoulders, keeping the back always towards the ceiling. Okay,
Yes.
I think now we'll take the
So
next.
I think because Dr. Shashibala has delivered the baby very properly, otherwise, we get stuck at every stage delivering the breech. Sometimes
Yeah.
the legs are extended and they are extended legs. So sometimes you have to give a pressure at the popliteal fossa to flex the legs.
But the
and-
pin, yes.
So that is how, so at every stage, you need the assistance to deliver the baby by breath.
And-
Okay,
Seasoned obstetrician.
yes.
Okay, so Dr. Vijay Lakshmi, you've been waiting and you are going to be given a very, very tough job. Dr. Vijay Lakshmi,
Yes,
are you with me?
yes, I'm very much with you.
Okay, good evening.
Good
So
evening,
this is
good
one
evening.
of the most dreaded complications of
I
a
know.
difficult vaginal delivery. And I need not tell you, we are going to be dealing with life-threatening one for the baby, for the obstetrician also. So here is a second gravida, 30-year-old who had gestational diabetes managed on medical nutrition therapy. She went into spontaneous labor, had a 13-hour first stage, which is a little bit longer for a second gravida, and 50 minutes of full dilatation and bearing down efforts, and the head is delivered. However, the rest of the baby is not coming. So just to tell the audience, can we predict this situation?
Yes, of course, shoulder
Of course,
dystocia
you know,
always comes as a
This is a dreaded scene when there is
Yeah.
a turtle sign.
turtle sign. Here, maybe the turtle also will not work. It is all stuck. I think
Yes.
head will not even recede here
Yes, yes,
to give a
it will
turtle
be.
sign. It looks like that.
So,
The shoulder,
Dr. Sneha,
as
please advance the slides. Dr. Vijay.
as
Yeah,
Dr.
let
Mitra
us see.
says, yes, it's a very dreaded thing, and quite often we are not able to really expect or predict. But sometimes in certain risk factors, like in this particular case, it's a diabetic pregnancy. So normally it is the problem with the shoulders or the transverse diameter. And therefore, even if the head comes out, it is the shoulders which give trouble. The same weight which the normal labor can get the baby out in non-diabetic will not happen in diabetic pregnancies, and that we have to take it. There are also not only just the fetal factor. In diabetes, the mother's pelvis also has lots of fatty tissue and all those things. Soft tissues are more. So the pliability for the baby to rotate also becomes difficult. And therefore, that is one risk factor in this particular case. The other thing is, when we say it is a second gravida, we think because the previous delivery was a normal delivery and this
Dr.
should be
Vijay
happening quite
Lakshmi, our
smoothly.
head
please,
is
Dr.
already
Sneha.
stuck. Please
No,
come
Dr.
to the
Sneha.
management, deliver the
Dr.
baby
Sneha.
fast.
And therefore,
Dr. Sneha,
I
please
think
let me take
that is not going to happen here because the previous delivery might have been a smaller baby as
One
well.
second.
Now,
One
once
second,
we
Dr.
know
Vijaya.
that we are
One
stuck with the
second.
shoulders
One
here.
second, Dr. Vijaya, just 1 second. Dr. Sneha, I will take her through this case. Please go back to 2 slides. Before we start managing shoulder dystocia,
Yeah.
I just want you to recount
Yeah.
important high risk factors. Dr.
Yeah,
Sneha, don't
because
worry.
whenever there is a maternal obesity, it is going to give rise, predispose. Of course, as I said, the diabetes. Then the previous, if there she had difficult vaginal deliveries where operative delivery was done, again it poses an extra risk now. Previous shoulder dystocia. Sometimes I have had patients who had shoulder dystocia in first pregnancy, but second had been normal. Probably it depends on certain relative factors also. Abnormal progress, we know, mismanaged, precipitate, the shoulder didn't get time to rotate. It can happen for shoulder
Very true.
dystocia.
Very
And
good.
of course, the maternal obesity and a high, as we said, too much of gain of weight during pregnancy also predisposes. And of course, a big baby, as I said, head
Yeah.
is not the only factor. And
So
quite
very-
often, the baby weight which is predicted in ultrasound might also not be the accurate one.
Yeah.
And we are
So-
stuck like this.
So the bottom line is that we cannot predict, but we can be prepared for this emergency. So with your experience, if you are stuck, now how will you manage to deliver this patient?
Number one is not getting tense. That is very important. Head
Very
has
good.
come out,
Very
shoulder
good.
is stuck. Let us not become too nervous at it and then call for help. It's very
Yeah.
important
Please,
because we
advance
will always need people to help us with the procedures. There are umpteen procedures here in shoulder dystocia, and one is not superior to the other. Probably we go one by one from the atraumatic to a little more invasive kind of procedures.
Dr. Sneha, please advance the slide. Yeah.
And the common to remember the procedures, we have something acronym as WARM, either as alarmer or as helper. Both can give us some clues as to how we go ahead with that. Number one, of course, the oxytocin is on, the compressions are happening. Most important is no fundal pressure, no unnecessary interference. And
Very good.
the first thing which we should tell the patient is for a what we call as a McRoberts position, wherein we are going to abduct the and full flexion at the thigh, at the hip, and abduction, and so that the pelvis becomes roomy, and also we get a space at the sacral, at the spinal level. So quite often this procedure and a little bit of push, it comes by the baby, by the mother, comes off. Now, if this does not help, then naturally we have to look at the episiotomy as well, because we need to be a little more liberal with the episiotomy, because we are going to go ahead and manage this shoulder which has to come out. Now, the next is, of course, the suprapubic pressure which we give, and that is again called as a Rubin 1. And then if it doesn't deliver, quite often that itself delivers at the suprapubic pressure with the McRoberts position. Otherwise, we will have to give a, yes?
Slowly,
Yes,
slowly.
Mitra?
What I'm trying that for the audience, just to elaborate that when you do the McRoberts maneuver, how are you helping? I know
I'm helping because when the position is external complete flexion and abduction. So what happens? There is a space created, and that straightens also the spines. So there is a big room out there, plus the pelvis is rotated in such a way that the shoulders get released and they can come out. So quite
the
often
lumbosacral spine gets straightened and the
Yes.
symphysis pubis rides higher. So
Yes.
there is increased available space. Very good. Now, when
Yes.
you are doing suprapubic pressure, ma'am,
Yeah.
just for the audience, please
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah. So when we are the assistant, we can ask him to give a suprapubic pressure, and that is called as actually a Rubin's 1 method or
Ma'am,
whatever.
forget about
So
the name.
they will
doesn't
try.
matter. Yeah.
They will try to put the pressure at the. See, the very important thing all through in labor is bladder has to be empty. Now
Yeah,
at this
very-
juncture, it is very difficult that you test for bladder or put in a catheter. So we need to worry about the bladder much earlier. And now we have to give a suprapubic pressure so that we try to release the anterior stuck shoulder. Now,
So,
if this does not release, yes, if this
So,
does
ma'am,
not release, then vaginally we are there to take
Yeah.
care of the baby, and there we
Now
put
the
a
internal
posterior
So what is
pressure.
important?
Yes.
What is important is that, as Dr. Vijay Lakshmi had mentioned clearly, that the AP, the shoulders start descending in AP diameter, which is the smallest at the inlet. So when we are doing these maneuvers, what we are trying to do is make the shoulders come into oblique. So when we do suprapubic pressure, if we know the back of the baby and we ask the assistant to give it in such a way that they push the anterior shoulder away
Towards
from
the vagina.
Towards the
Towards the
away from
vagina.
the midline, away, so that not in AP, it is made into oblique.
Oblique.
That is, it will help in engagement of the shoulders. Very
Yes.
nice, ma'am. Now let's talk about the internal maneuvers.
Yeah. Now, once we have done this, the vaginal finger can do another procedure, which is posteriorly press on the anterior shoulder. So that can also release it. Then we have the wood screw maneuver, which is rotating the posterior shoulder anteriorly, because now the posterior shoulder has come in the sacral hollow and it is at a much lower level than the anterior
Yes.
shoulder, which is stuck at the pubic symphysis. So we try to rotate that, or we do also the reverse. So these two corkscrew or screw
Wood screw.
methods are called as wood screw maneuvers, and they can happen in both directions. So once this comes, it can be released. Now,
Yeah.
even if this does not happen, then the posterior shoulder can be released from the sacral hollow straight away. And that is, of course, easier said
hello?
than done. It is very difficult. I have known it, because the anterior shoulder doesn't give way. It is all by that time completely stuck. But that is again called as a Barner's maneuver or Jacqueline's maneuver. So if all this fails, then only we go anything further. Otherwise, usually, if we are not nervous and we are able to do all these maneuvers, this can come. All four maneuver, which is called as a Gaskin's maneuver, that also works very well actually. When you ask the patient to be on the four, like how the kids crawl or just with the legs up, and this, that also releases and brings the baby in the obstetric curve, and quite often that gets released as well. Now,
So gravity works in our favor. Actually, this is a very difficult situation, but as Dr. Vijay Lakshmi has very nicely elaborated, and my personal take on this is, I don't try to remember the names of the maneuvers, but yes, let us remember the sequence. First is the McRoberts, and then is the suprapubic pressure, and then is the internal, and especially in the posterior hollow, get the posterior arm out, and you won't be stuck 90% of the time. And of course, just to complete the list, ma'am, the other three, would you like to
yeah,
mention?
that they are like, if we are stuck, of course, we can try to push the head from below, release it. It is again not so easy, because it has taken so much of time traveling through the pelvis, and now we are wanting it to go back from the pelvic outlet to this thing to be released in the cesarean section. But okay, we have to try that as well. The
So this
other thing is, of
actually
course,
more
the fracture.
answer for a theoretical question. So
Sir?
thank you very much, Dr. Vijay.
Yes,
Now-
yes, Mitra.
I mean, thank you so much, because we had to complete the list of all the procedures.
Yeah.
But believe me, when you are stuck with shoulder dystocia, just these three things, as
Release.
could work. Next slide, please, Dr. Sneha. Now, we are not done with it, because we know in such a difficult situation, we are bound to have some injuries. So before we go into the legal, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi, please tell the most important injuries that happen to
See,
the
the
baby.
fractures can always happen. We have had humerus fractures. We have had Erb's palsy. We have these palsies are one thing which I think shoulder dystocia, even a small shoulder dystocia, is going to give rise to Klumpke's paralysis and Erb's palsy. And there we are stuck to, we have to explain. But most important is involving the patient in whatever we are doing. And if you have a birth companion, they should be watching, because it is, you are trying your best to release this baby. And it is
Yes.
not just the intrauterine demise or intrapartum demise, but it is all these problems
Long-term.
which will come and will need explanation. Clavicle fracture, even sometimes, yeah. And
So what is
the
very
humeral
important to
fracture.
remember, what is very important to remember is that we should never pull on the head and stretch the neck, which is the reason for the
C5,
brachial
C6.
plexus injury. Because C5, 6 will be injured, and sometimes there can be very big damage, permanent damage.
But
So-
quite often it is not just the pulling or the pressure. See, when the head has been in that position for some time, even the nerve pressure causes a little bit of
Yeah.
palsy.
But that will
Might
be
recover early.
Yeah.
It will recover early, but then at least complete severing of the C5, C6 will not happen.
So what would be your advice to the practitioners? Because these are those cases where damages can be put on the obstetrician. So what would be your advice?
The thing
In the
is,
meanwhile, I'll just interrupt just to remind, we've just crossed 50 minutes. If we
We
could
have
sum it
one
up in the
more
next
case
5
only.
minutes, I would
Yes,
be
yes.
really happy. Don't,
Yeah.
I don't.
I
we
think
are almost finishing. I think one more
Yeah,
case.
we are going
one
to.
case.
Yeah.
So
Doctor-
the thing is, always involve the patient, keep telling her, write down. I mean, when the head was delivered, that time has to be
Very
noted.
true. This is
Because-
what I wanted,
Yeah,
that the documentation has to be.
done. And hypoxia, pH, and all those things will support you later. Because that is very important that you document the
Protocol
timings.
and whatever maneuvers are done. Please carry on, Dr. Vijay. Dr. Vijay?
Yeah. So,
So good documentation, good communication, and complete involvement and information. See, if we do not inform the relatives about possible damage, then we are going to suffer more of the litigation.
and
Dr.
even mother
Sneha,
will suffer some perineal laceration stars, which you
That we
might be
can-
stitching for hours together.
that we can manage.
We come to the last case. I am going to wind up it fast because of the lack of time. Dr. Vidya, we have a primigravida, 37 weeks. She comes to you in early labor. Mother is stable. Her vitals are stable. She's having good, mild uterine contractions, only 25 seconds to every 4 minutes. Cervix is only 3 centimeter dilated. Head is floating. FHR 140 per minute. You find a sudden leaking and there is drop in fetal heart rate. What is your diagnosis and how do you manage this patient?
Good evening, ma'am. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Lakshmi. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Lakshmi madam for making me the part of this great international conference. And a big congratulations to our moderators, Dr. Mitra ma'am, Dr. Sneha ma'am, for this informative discussion. As the case is, number 5th case is there is sudden drop in fetal heart rate after leaking with floating head. It suggests most probable is that it is a cord prolapse. There is the chance of the cord prolapse.
Yes, how do you manage this particular case? 3
In the-
centimeter
actually,
dilated.
it is a 3
floating head.
centimeter
Yeah.
with floating head. It is best to do the immediate cesarean section within the 30 minutes. It is the time interval from the
As
diagnosis
early
to
as
delivery,
possible.
As early as
As
possible.
early as
In
possible.
this case, the cesarean section is the best method. for
How
this.
do you confirm the diagnosis and what precautions you take? How do you arrange for the urgent delivery?
Okay, first of all, facility is having the cesarean section. It should be within 30 minutes, but while preparing for the cesarean section, the measures should be taken to decompress the cord, prolapse cord which is there, which can be diagnosed easily by the vaginal examination. We can palpate or feel the pulsation of the cord by our fingers.
Yes.
And
What
after
position of the mother you would like to
position,
have?
it should be taken first the exaggerated Trendelenburg or the Sims position with the pillow below the hips or the thigh to decrease or decompress the prolapse cord. Meanwhile, while preparing for this, or sometimes there is role of this pulling the bladder with the infusion. It will decrease the pressure over the cord.
Yes.
And
Any role for elevation of the presenting part?
Elevation is either by this position or by the manually we can do by putting this head or by this pulling the bladder with the normal saline.
Okay.
It will exert the pressure over the presenting part and decompress the cord, prolapse cord.
Yes, she's not having very strong contractions, so there is no role of tocolysis. Any role for oxygenation?
Oxygenation is best. It should be given. With oxygen should be there. It is the role.
Whom all you want to call for help?
Obviously, we call for the help. Otherwise, it is the teamwork because we have to deliver it is immediately delivered.
Very true. Because you tend to forget calling your team. First and foremost is immediate delivery by whatever means. So you have to keep your operation theater ready, your anesthesiologist ready, your neonatology team also should be ready. And then meanwhile, you try and do all these preventive measures which are going to help the patient prevent deoxygenation or hypoxia of the baby. Okay. Now, this is just a theoretical discussion for some other, how to prevent the cord prolapse, what all measures you should take, what are the predisposing factors and what are the aggravating factors. Okay, so what we have to consider, basically you have to know what are the predisposing factors, which are the patients where you are likely to have cord prolapse. Can you just enumerate? Yes.
There is a risk factor, so many risk factors. It should be assessed where is the chances of cord prolapse, such as in cases of the prematurity or there is high floating head, as the discussed case, there is high floating head. There are more chances of the cord prolapse. If the patient is having the polyhydramnios with the unstable lie, or there is malpresentation such as the breech or transfer, it is the more chances of the cord prolapse. Or if antenatally we are doing the external cephalic version, sometimes there may be the cord prolapse, chances of cord prolapse, but there are a few conditions. If we are doing the artificial rupture of membrane, please look for the cord prolapse. There are more chances after the rupture of membrane artificially.
Yes. Any role of routine ultrasound at labor room admissions, if at all you can find a cord presentation? You should never allow the patient to go into spontaneous labor and plan for cesarean section.
If there is cord presentation, it should be avoided. It should be the planned cesarean section.
Yes. So we are almost coming to the end of the discussion. You have taken up we just take quick one-liner messages from all the panelists. We start from Sarita Bhalerao. Dr. Sarita?
Yes, I think that anticipation, vigilance, and very careful monitoring is the key to managing a good second stage.
Yeah, next. Dr. Kalpana, Dr. Jaiswal.
Whenever the patient is in labor, we should not leave unattended. One thing, everything should be explained properly to relative, and to save ourselves from the medical legal purpose, we should take proper consent and explain the things correctly.
Yes, Dr. Kalpana.
We want one line. Yes.
Let them, Mitra, let them talk. Yeah.
Yes, there should not be the distress of the obstetrician with the distress of patient and distress of the fetus. This is the main point I want to tell to everyone here.
Okay, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi.
Yeah,
rotation
I think off and on.
Rotation of the
whatever we know, I think we should also be able to run through some drills off and on. It is very important in obstetrics that we keep practicing or thinking about whatever we know.
Yes, Dr. Vijay, that's excellent.
Yes. Next, Dr. Shashibala.
We should be vigilant in the first stage, second stage of labor. And I think a partograph should be monitored, and we should be very vigilant. Any problems with the mother or with the baby or on the progress of labor, it is very difficult.
Yeah, Dr. Vidya.
Situations come, you have to manage.
Everything is covered. I think assess the risk factor in advance, and the observation should be at patients, keep the patients for delivering.
Yeah, purposefully, I have made the last case very short because only prompt action is needed for that case and not much discussion. We have almost come to the end of this panel discussion, and few take-home messages I want to give you. The second stage of labor is the most crucial part of the labor, and the perinatal as well as the long-term outcome is dependent on the second stage management. And that's the reason we have to understand the basic physiology of the effect of each uterine contraction on the fetal oxygenation and fetal acid-base balance. Active management of labor with vigilant monitoring of the fetal heart sounds and duration of labor will give you optimum outcome. Any diverse or distraction from the normal will require active intervention, maybe in the form of augmentation of labor or instrumentation as and when necessary. And all the instruments have to be applied after fulfilling all the criteria, mind well, after fulfilling all the criteria with utmost gentleness, with anticipation of positive results. It shouldn't be the trial of application of the instruments, and no sequential instruments, forceps and ventus, or ventus and forceps and then cesarean. For bridge, shoulder dystocia, cord prolapse, always be well versed with the technique. Dr. Vijayalakshmi has already said, carry out mock drills or even the whatever on mannequins, you can carry out these procedures. Do not panic. Call for help as a team. May it be a senior experienced obstetrician or may it be even junior expert. Do not hesitate. Call for help. Anesthetist, neonatologist, simultaneously. Everything has to be done. This is not one after other. Everything has to be simultaneous. Transparency, counseling of the relatives and patient, discussion, proper time to time communication, documentation. These are all the keys to success of difficult vaginal delivery, and of course, saving your health from litigation as well. Yes.
So, Dr. Sneha, if you will give 1 minute,
Yeah, please.
My comment. All of us know that obstetrics is a game of patience, caution, and bearing, because the obstetrician is under the maximum stress. It's not the patient or the relatives. We are taking a very big stress when we are trying to deliver a patient healthily, normally, vaginally. So that is a very big challenge. And let me add, friends, that right now we were doing pelvic examinations, our digital examination. Something to add to the armamentarium of an obstetrician is the invasion of use of ultrasound in the second stage. Lots of articles are there. So intrapartum ultrasound use is now actually coming in a big way. By transabdominal or transperineal examination, we get a better objective assessment of the station, of the position, the rotation, and the progress of labor. So friends, there are lots of articles. I would want, and many of us have ultrasounds. If you have the permissions for PNDT to bring it in your labor room, start learning yourself and reading the articles, and we can exercise, because it is very clearly written that if we have assessed by ultrasound the feasibility of a successful vaginal delivery, we can decrease the complications of taking decisions of second stage cesarean section. So thank you, Dr. Lakshmi, for giving me an opportunity to moderate this extremely difficult panel with Dr. Sneha. And thank you, the panelists and the audience, if they are there, to share our deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Lakshmi, for giving us this opportunity. And thank you all the organizers. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, both of you, for making this panel so wonderful and comfortable.